Hey, it's Amanda. If you kept up with us in season 1, you know that I love talking to brand and marketing leaders and hearing their stories of success and failure and all the lessons they learn along the way. We're getting ready to launch season 2, which will include leaders from Nike, Keen, the Canucks, and Diadora. But for today, it's just me for a change. Every year at my agency, Monday Creative, I publish something called the Crystal Baller. It's my annual roundup of emerging cultural, marketing, and product trends that will shape the industries we primarily work with, which are outdoor, active, and wellness brands for the most part. I have a lot of fun writing it, and I hear that you all have a lot of fun reading it. So we're going to try it in podcast form. A little disclaimer, I am definitely not a professional trend forecaster, but I go to a lot of conferences and trade shows, and just the nature of my job means I get to talk to industry insiders almost every day, and I take a lot of notes in the process. For 2025, I've got 9 trends for marketers to watch, and for each one, I'm going to share some tips for how your brand could apply these trends to your product and marketing plans in the year ahead. First, though, I thought it would be fun to look back at my 2024 Crystal Baller predictions to see just how my track record is. So here's what I said in January 2024. Number 1, obviously the first one is AI. I said that the 3 AI qualities you should embrace are authenticity, augmentation, and all about you. And it was kind of 3 characteristics that are different avenues that make AI useful to me. And since then, AI has pretty much just become the water we swim in. But I still think those 3 are where I personally get the most value. I think there's something about taking the foundations of AI and then putting your own personal spin on it. That's authenticity. Augmentation, using it as a thinking partner and just augmenting the creativity you already have on your teams. And all about you, using it for personalization wherever possible. Number 2 was profit over growth. The idea that we're no longer glorifying growth at any cost. And I think we definitely saw this in terms of where VC was going over the last year and some of the incentives that were being created for businesses. There was really a drive to get a bigger margin, reduce expenses, and actually show profit instead of just growth at any cost. Number 3, nothing new. I've been on this secondhand train for a long time. At Monday, we do a lot of work in circularity, and it's safe to say that in 2024, secondhand and resale absolutely exploded. There was huge growth in this space. I feel great about that prediction. Number 4, the rise of the small content creator. Yeah, it's really pretty much every ad I feel like I saw this year was maybe a content creator I'd never even heard of, but creating this real feeling of authenticity as they engaged with products or, just gave their review of something. We might see a backlash on this in 2025. I haven't included that in my predictions, but we have an episode coming up about that. Number 5, fiber. Yeah, I have a bias about this because one of our clients and a brand that I've invested in, Belly Welly, released a fiber product this year. But it exploded. Belly Welly specifically has a really unique fiber blend, and it was a massively huge product this year. They're flying off the shelves at Target and Walmart. It's viral on every platform. I use it. I just ordered more, and it seems like much of America is on the same fiber bandwagon. Okay, number 6, women in the sports spotlight. Yes, no question, this came to fruition this year. We're seeing new NBA teams popping up. I went to my first WNBA game in Brooklyn this year, and I got to see the Liberty take on Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever, and it was definitely one of the best sporting events I've ever been to. I think we're going to see a lot of attention and spotlight continuing to be shown on the WNBA, but women in sports in general. And then the last one, I kind of felt like maybe I'd missed the mark on this one. I made the call that the sport paddle was going to come to the United States. And I didn't really see it showing up anywhere. Pickleball is still kind of ruling. But just this week, there was an issue of Fit Insider that was literally called The Rise of Paddle in the United States. If you're not tracking, paddle is basically pickleball's European cousin. It infuses some elements of tennis and some elements of pickleball and has its own distinct paddle. And if you haven't heard about it yet, you probably will in the next few weeks. So I think I'm almost 7 for 7 in my 2024 predictions. Maybe some of them were a little bit too obvious, or maybe they just feel obvious looking back on the year now that it's already passed. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But here's what I'm watching in 2025. Okay, number 1, I'm calling this the change what you can spirit. Remember years ago, maybe 8 years ago, when we all thought we could change the world? It kind of feels like the world is beyond changing at this point, and maybe a lot of us feel like positive global change is on pause for the next 4 years. This could be a pretty prolonged season of setbacks for the planet. For DEI, we're seeing this right away, and for general bodily safety for a lot of our peers. But rather than walking away in defeat, I think we're going to see folks focusing on making an impact within their immediate sphere. I heard someone talk about kind of like the, 10 square feet around you. What can you do within the communities that you're actually touching? We might do less marching with protest signs, but instead we'll do community cleanups. We'll serve at inner city kitchens and donate to local charities. We'll plant gardens where they need them. We'll model kindness and inclusivity. And wherever possible, we'll elevate diverse voices in our own businesses and communities. I think we're all going to get active close to home, or at least I really hope we do. And I hope that instead of raging at our social media feeds, we get out and serve meals, and we sponsor refugees, and we make people feel welcome and included. So the brief to your brand here is to get actually really clear on who your customer persona is, what matters to them, and where that overlaps with your own values. If you don't have your ideal customer persona, this is the year to do it. And don't just make them kind of abstract. Think about what this person cares about so that you can find that overlap in that Venn diagram. And then create values-aligned opportunities to have an impact in your key markets. Okay, number 2. This is the year that brand voice becomes indispensable. When we first started Monday, my agency, it was a weirdly hard sell to get clients to invest in their brand voice. And because of my experience leading brand content at a really fast-growing brand, I knew how indispensable it was. And we've seen a huge shift this year. It seems like brands finally are understanding that whether they're engaging with their customers online or in real life, how they talk and what they say really matters just as much as, and maybe even more than, how they show up visually. And to really kind of drive this home, along with some of our peers in the brand world, we've actually shifted to talking about brand voice as verbal identity, because your voice really isn't separate from your identity. It's the singular thing that defines who you are for your fans. There's no easier way to create brand consistency than to articulate and document your verbal identity. And we're seeing big and small companies enlist our help to create really robust guidelines, and usually supporting strap lines or kind of do this, not this vocabulary lists, or really ownable, we call it linguistic abstractions. That's your own kind of distinct voice that you create your own meaning for. And they're using it to brief in their ambassadors and influencers, the media, and every single person on their internal teams as well, so that everyone is really speaking the same language, drawing from the same keywords, and singing from the same hymnal. So the brief to your brand is simple here. If your brand voice is still locked in your head or in your founder's head, then I would say your brand voice doesn't actually exist. This is the year to document your verbal identity, to onboard your team to it, and to ensure everyone objectively knows it when they see it. It shouldn't be a mystery if they've nailed it or not. Okay, number 3. I'm calling this endurance is for everyone. So if you know me, you know that I think and talk about running constantly. But in 2025, everyone you know will be thinking and talking about running too. Endurance sports and ultramarathons in particular are seeing a huge upswing. I have a friend who owns a large race series in the Southwest, and he was recently telling me that it's a slog to fill their 10 and 20K races, but every single 100-miler sells out in days. Like, people can't sign up fast enough. And it seems like endurance sport is no longer just the purview of your fittest friend or your friend that, has been running forever. Ultras are now on bucket lists of recent retirees, stay-at-home moms, finance bros, and even like multi-generations of family. We often call these people the recreationalist persona. And they're all looking for a moment when they can cross the finish line, sometimes together. And it's that pride of accomplishment. And this is one of the few sports that isn't really about winning. It's about how hard you try. So, brief to your brand, when you're thinking about maybe sponsorship dollars, don't assume that ultras are too niche for you. You might be actually hitting a surprisingly broad audience. And if you have a sports product, think about how you can reframe it as maybe a recovery product, or think about adapting your product line for endurance. Like if you have shoes, wider toe boxes, foot care, like maybe novel ways to hide or tend to our black and missing toenails. If anyone has run an endurance race, you know the pain. Or products that maybe adapt for extremes of heat or cold, fuel options that maximize our output but won't put our bellies out. I've started to see a lot of that at the running event this year, more fuel options that are tailored for women's stomachs, those of us who have a harder time digesting things. Okay, number 4. This is the year that macros go mainstream, and I don't know if it's just because it's January, but we're seeing it everywhere. So what are macros? My parents would have probably called it the Atkins diet. Gen X, I think they refer to it as keto. In 2025, we're calling it tracking macros. And it's all you're going to hear about from your health nut friends. Anyone trying to get lean or swole has been doing this for a while. And this will be the year that tracking those macros really goes mainstream. If you're new to it, it's ostensibly the practice of tracking and optimizing your balance of macronutrients. So your proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. And let's be honest, it's actually code for the practice of cutting carbs and replacing them with protein and fat. And the goal is, so they say, to eat the number of grams of protein that is equal to the number of pounds you weigh, or maybe the number of pounds you want to weigh. And in other trend news, this is a carryover from 2024 for sure. If you notice your fit friends suddenly getting extra cut, it could be macros, or they could be quietly microdosing Ozempic. Who knows? The brief to your brand, we'll be looking for protein-heavy substitutes. I recently found these amazing egg white wraps in Portland that have kind of replaced bread and tortillas for me. So if you're doing, say, community events and you're putting together a menu for those events, try to lean into light proteins. You might want to pay extra attention to those content creators who are on that macro train. Overall, we're all going to be looking for more kind of fast and clean protein options. And come on, as soon as we get into macros, we start getting into other supplements. So maybe be thinking about what are some starter supplements you can offer. Not to keep coming back to Belly Welly, but that's sort of like a gateway supplement for the average woman or man because it has fiber, it has electrolytes, probiotics, and collagen. And once you kind of realize how good you can feel once you start taking those supplements, you're going to start rethinking everything else. I also really like Organica's enhanced collagen protein drink powders because it's a big dose of protein and you still get to feel like you're doing something good for your bones and your skin and your nails. All right, number 5. I'm calling this the return to comfort media. This year, 1990s style was back in full force. And by this year, I mean 2024. And if the proliferation of eyebrow rings on my baristas is any clue, in 2025, we'll double down on aughts style from the early 2000s. Nostalgia is as strong as ever, and it's extending into the music, TV shows, and movies we consume. The Twilight movies were having a mini renaissance. So is the band Creed. Bands are revisiting old albums front to back on tour. I recently made a playlist of all my early 2000s emo, and it's actually a surprising balm in tumultuous times. It really just brings me back to a happier place. And as we look to self-soothe through the external chaos happening, we're going to start to return to the classics and might see surprising anachronisms like Gen Z with flip phones and a renewed demand for CD and Blu-ray players. and maybe even watches that only tell the time. I'm wearing one right now. So the brief to your brand, take cues from the aughts, both for your products and for your campaigns, whether it's a visual treatment or music selection. Pull on those tropes that bring your audience back to what they might see as a golden era. Or even better, use modern technology to push your audience towards timeless analog experiences. So how can you use the tech that's available to us to kind of harken back to that time? And this is another strong case for knowing who your persona is. In order to know what's going to be nostalgic for them, you have to know who they are. All right, number 6, perimenopause enters the chat. Perimenopause is not new. I would say it's been around since the advent of humanity, or maybe 50 years after the advent of humanity, if we're being precise. But for the first time, it's entering our daily discourse. Halle Berry has a masterclass called The Magic of Menopause. Miranda July wrote a blockbuster book centered on women's shifting identities through perimenopause. That book is all fours, in case you're wondering. And one OBGYN has garnered 2.2 million followers, probably even more since I last looked, in her attempt to destigmatize perimenopause. Millennials are just used to sharing everything about their lives on social media. And as elder millennials start to hit their 40s, their hormonal changes are starting to feature on social media as well. Symptoms like brain fog, mood swings, sleeplessness, night sweats, libido changes, these problems are all coming out into the open for the first time, as more of us just won't accept that this is the way it has to be. And in the same way that brands have targeted IBS and bloating in recent years, I think we're about to see a wave of products for perimenopause. So here's the brief to your brand. If you target an elder millennial or Gen Xers who menstruate, think about how you can meet them where they're at. Champion their sleep, their fluctuating temperatures, their sexual and mental health, and give them novel products, or align your brand with opportunities for shared discourse and education. So how can you just be a part of that conversation and create spaces for it? And if someone can rebrand HRT, hormone replacement therapy, the way that Array and Seed have tackled probiotics, they'll have a ready audience. I'm sure someone is already on it, and I'm just waiting for it to show up. All right, number 7. Loyalty is the most important KPI. Here is a recurring event. I'll be on an initial discovery call. Someone reaches out wanting to work with us, and I'm kind of finding out what their problem is. And we'll be talking about a rebrand with a usually older founder who has been singularly focused on product or performance marketing, so their paid ads, for example, while their brand is just steadily losing relevance. And the cost of acquisition keeps rising. So it's getting more expensive to acquire new customers through those digital ads. And meanwhile, they've diluted their brand and people don't really care about it anymore. And they'll always ask me, how do you measure the ROI on this brand thing? Or they'll say something like, we like to reward people for performance. What kind of a return can I expect on brand? And realistically, there are probably about 50 or more different levers that will impact your ROI. Consistency, authenticity, those are probably the two most important. And once we as a branding agency hand off a new brand toolkit, what happens next is largely beyond our control. But I like to tell people, and I believe this is true, that the KPI they should be tracking is loyalty. As we all hold our purse strings tightly for another year, your existing fans are your greatest asset. You can pay to acquire new ones, but loyalty is going to be where you're getting the most value from your customers. So here's the brief to your brand. If you haven't already done it, launching your loyalty program is the easiest thing you can do this year to protect your bottom line. I would think about partnering with a platform. We really love Ethos because they do more than just points. It's not just about getting discounts. And think about keeping your loyalty program true to your brand. One company's loyalty program is going to look totally different from another's. The perks of loyalty can be all kinds of insider moments. It might be early access to products. It might be events, exclusive collections. These types of perks don't even need to cost you very much at all, but they can really benefit you in the long run. All right, We've got 2 more to go. Number 8 is, I'm calling it durable and multi-occasion. I've been talking about circularity forever. If you read our blog, you know this is one of my favorite things to write about, and I talk on podcasts a lot about product circularity and marketing for product circularity. But if you can't make your product circular, the next best thing is durable versatility. If you can get 200 uses out of a garment, you've dramatically reduced its environmental impact. Shoppers want to make fewer purchases this year, so those purchases need to last, and they need to work in multiple contexts. I love this quote from Red Antler's 2025 forecast. They say, durability is the ultimate luxury. And I'm thinking about brands like Keen, a client of ours. It's the sort of shoe that you can wear with anything. You can wear it with a cool pair of chinos and make it elevated for work, but you can also scale a mountain in them. So here's the brief to your brand. While we are all in our price-conscious era, show us products that are versatile. One pair of shoes that can cross multiple occasions on a week in Italy, a coat that's both downpour and Michelin star ready, a single supplement that hits all of our health goals. These are the things we're going to be looking for. If you were to use the prompts durable and versatile to shape your next product or campaign, think about how it would change what you do. All right, number 9, I'm calling this a bonus, and we're calling it Kettlebell Dads Trump Dad Bods. I love a wildcard prediction, and here is this year's with some input from our creative director and our resident kettlebell dad, Brian Romero. So if 2024 was the year of the trad wife, we're saying 2025 is the year of the kettlebell dad. There's this growing social media subculture of dads who are throwing off the couch potato stereotype while also avoiding the gym. They want flexibility that comes with at-home workouts. They want maximum cardio, and they want not too much equipment. And the kettlebell is kind of the one fitness tool to replace them all. And they, will sometimes sub in a toddler when they're on the road. But we're seeing this movement of fit dads who love kettlebells. What's the brief to your brand for this? I don't know. What does recovery look like for kettlebell dads? What supplements complement their lifestyle? How do you engage moms or other parental identities as you tap into this trend? Make it broad and make it accessible, but also make it fun. All right. That is my 9 trends that I'm watching in 2025. I would love to hear what you think. Did I miss some major movements? Am I way behind the curve on some of these? What did you think? Would you add to anything, take anything away, or refine it? Reach out to me, Amanda at mondaycreative.co, and give me your feedback.